everyone. Welcome to the Kentucky Talks podcast. This is a brand new podcast in which I will be discussing all things Kentucky athletics, football and basketball mainly, but pretty much anything newsworthy that has to do with Kentucky football or basketball will be discussed here. We've got a podcast, which is what this is, that we're starting, and then we're going to. I also have a website. It'll be kind of like a blog, like a KSR type thing. So if that's what you're into, there's a link in the description. You can go, bookmark that, save that, and whatnot. But I have a passion for Kentucky sports that I've had my entire life, and I felt like I would put that to use and try to just spread my opinions and my knowledge about UK through the internet. So I want to just go ahead and hop right into the news. I don't want to spend too much time on introductions. So the first thing I want to talk about is Terrence Clarke, who was the number 4 overall player in the 2021 basketball recruiting rankings. Some services had him number 3, some services had him number 4, but he's a consensus top 5 player in his class, and he was in the 2021 class. He's a 6'7" shooting guard, 5-star. Committed to Kentucky a couple of days ago, and announced that he would be reclassifying to the class of 2020. So he will be joining the 5-star guard Brandon Boston, 4-star small forward Cameron Fletcher, and 4-star power forward Lance Ware in that recruiting class. That moves the UK recruiting class up to number 1 in the country for 2020, with a bunch of other targets still looming. It's still kind of the hope that we land Josh Christopher, Makur Maker, Isaiah Todd. Players of that caliber are still heavily considering UK. I think if we can get a big man to fill out that class, just like a center and then a true point guard. There's been whispers about 5-star 2021 guard Devin Askew, who I think is a top 3 point guard in the 2021 class. There's word that he will commit to UK and reclassify to this year. So, that's kind of a big option. The 2021 or the 2020 class doesn't really have too many great players, in the or too many great point guards that we're looking at least. So, it's probably a good thing that we may have some reclass options. Some reclass options for 2021 to 2020. That's a good sign. So I'm really hoping so. So yeah, that's kind of the first bit of news. Happened earlier in the week. I'm sure most people already know about it. And that is that Terrence Clarke committed to the University of Kentucky, and he will join that draft class. In the class of 2020, he's moved up. Well, not moved up. He actually pretty much stayed where he was. He's still the 4th-ranked player in the class. So, he adds a lot, and hopefully we can continue to land some other big-time targets. So, the next thing I want to talk about, and this is some unfortunate news, is that number 2 overall player in the class of 2020, Jalen Green, is no longer considering UK after the commitment of Terrence Clarke. Apparently, there hasn't really been any contact or communication between UK and Jalen Green for a while. So I'm not sure if Green is maybe kind of, Calipari usually doesn't back off of top tier talent unless there's a reason behind it. So unless he just thinks Terrence Clarke is 10 times better than Jalen Green, or unless he thinks Jalen Green is just going to go pro, or if there's something going on with that whole situation, I think the most likely option for Jalen Green is that he's going to go pro. He's going to go overseas, pull a LaMelo Ball or a man, I don't even remember his name anymore. The point guard. Hampton, RJ Hampton, who decided to go to overseas as well. That's probably what Jalen Green's going to do. So Jalen Green is no longer in contact with UK and has cut them from his list, but he is still considering Oregon, Memphis, and I believe USC are like the three front runners right now. I believe if he does choose to go to college, it will be to Memphis. If he doesn't, then he's going to go overseas. But Jalen Green, a top-tier talent, so it's a little unfortunate that he decided to go somewhere else. Now, another small bit of news is former Kentucky shooting guard Michael Mulder, who has been spending the last few years in the NBA G League, just signed a training camp deal with the Miami Heat. So he will be joining former Wildcats Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo on that Miami Heat roster. Now, that doesn't mean he made the roster. That simply means that he is fighting for a chance to make the roster. It's a training camp deal, so we'll see what happens. It's probably unlikely that Michael makes the team, but it is what it is, and I'm very excited that he's just got the opportunity. Now, that's all the basketball stuff out of the way. I know it's football season. Everyone wants to talk about football. So real quick, Florida's Felipe Franks, who injured his leg against Kentucky, has been ruled out for the season with a dislocated ankle. Anytime a 6'9", 325-pound defensive lineman falls on your leg like that, it's probably not going to be in very good shape. So, yeah, he's out for the season. But, after what we saw Kyle Trask do against us, we know where he led the Gators back to victory against us. I think Florida is going to be all right when it comes to the quarterback position. I mean, they've got Florida's a team that has 4 and 5 stars on their bench, so I think they'll be okay at the quarterback position. So now, speaking of Kentucky versus Florida, this is the entire point of this episode. I want to talk really in depth about what happened, how the game went, why I think it went the way it went, and I kind of just want to discuss my thoughts about the team and where we stand going forward. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get into that. Now, the final score in Lexington was 29-21 with Florida taking the lead. It was 22-21 before on the last drive when they were just trying to run the clock out. They broke a 72-yard run for a touchdown, 75-yard run for a touchdown. They broke a long run for the TD, and it is kind of why the score looks a little worse than it actually was. It was really 22-21. Backup quarterback for us, Sawyer Smith, who was filling in for the injured Terry Wilson, went 23 of 35 for 267 passing yards and 2 passing touchdowns, but threw 3 interceptions. He also had a rushing touchdown. So on the Sawyer Smith front, I think Sawyer played very well. He didn't throw an incompletion until about, I think it was a minute until halftime, or 2 or 3 minutes until halftime. He was perfect up until that point. He was throwing dots. Our guys were getting open. He was running the ball when he had to. He was making good decisions outside of a fumble on the very first drive where he fumbled the ball and turned it over. After that point, he was playing very, very well. So, Sawyer, listen, the dude came from Troy. He'd never played in a game like that in his life. He came from Troy, where he wasn't even the starter at Troy until the starter got hurt. So, a guy who didn't even start at Troy came in against Florida and was just dotting up that SEC secondary. Florida is supposedly DBU. They've got some of the best defensive backs in the entire country, and Sawyer played very well against them. He was poised. He struggled with decision making all game. The 3 picks he threw, one of the 3 picks that he threw was on that Hail Mary where we were trying to, drive down the field and score with, less than a minute left on the clock. So that I don't even know if I would consider that. But he had one in the red zone that was extremely costly, where he kind of just made a very poor decision and forced the ball that he didn't have to force. And, so that was very costly. And he had another interception. It was a deep throw that got picked off. So I think all in all, Sawyer Smith played very well for his first game in a Kentucky uniform. He's been on campus for 2 months. He looked like he knew the playbook like the back of his hand. He was making some great plays. So Sawyer, I don't think, was anywhere close to the problem. Cavassier Smoke out of the backfield had 16 carries for 81 yards, averaging 5.1 yards per carry. 5 of those 16 attempts came on the final drive, or not the final drive, but one of the final drives when we were attempting to ice the game. We had the lead, trying to run the ball. AJ Rose had 14 carries for 46 yards, 3.3 yards per carry. AJ Rose is a starter. Cavassier Smoke is the backup. They didn't start utilizing Cavassier until it was too late. There were multiple situations where Cavassier Smoke could have gotten the first down, but they went AJ and didn't get it. I think I'm obviously not an offensive coordinator. I'm not getting paid millions to do this. I'm not saying I know better than Eddie Gran. I'm not saying I know better than Mark Stoops, but their decision to go with AJ Rose on pivotal moments, must have first downs where Cavassier goes forward. Every time Cavassier Smoke touches the ball, something good happens, whether it be a simple 3 or 4 yard gain up the middle or whether he breaks a 35-yard run. Cavassier Smoke is extremely dangerous, and with that amazing offensive line that we have, the coaching staff just needs to go with the best available player. I get that AJ Rose deserves a chance. I get that he's been sitting on the bench for how long? 3 years, and he was stuck behind Benny. I get all that. But for how long? I don't think that you should just go with the most experienced player. If Cavassier Smoke is our best running back, then Cavassier Smoke needs to be who has the ball. I think the biggest thing I noticed, and the biggest reason I think Cavassier is the top option here, is when Cavassier, very similarly to Benny Snell. Now, Cavassier is a much better athlete than Benny Snell. He's faster, he's quicker, he cuts better, and he's very similar with Benny when it comes to strength. I don't think he's going to carry 6 defenders on his back 5 yards like Benny did, but he is still a very strong and compact running back who can get through some weak tackles and so on. So I like Cavassier Smoke a lot, but the biggest difference I noticed between him and AJ Rose is that when AJ Rose gets hit, it seems like his legs just stop. AJ's a very agile, very he makes great cuts. He's got great moves. He's got the jukes, I guess you could say. But Cavassier also has those jukes, and Cavassier also just explodes through the hole. Cavassier Smoke is what I like to call JoJo Kemp 2.0. He's basically what JoJo Kemp would be if JoJo Kemp was a little bit more athletic, a little faster, and a little stronger. If you guys remember, JoJo Kemp was such a reliable running back. He most of the time, JoJo Kemp would get you some yardage no matter what. Whereas, AJ Rose is one of those guys that if he finds a hole, he'll get through it. But, he's a very patient runner. He likes to sit behind the line, wait for a hole to open, and burst through it. Whereas Cavassier seems to be he has a better reaction time. He's able to find those holes quicker and blow through those holes quicker. So, they came out in the post game, when people were saying, why didn't you run Cavassier more? And their explanation was that, pretty much they didn't have an explanation, but their explanation, for what it's worth, was that AJ's they have faith in AJ, he's more experienced, that sort of thing. And I just don't think you should make those decisions based off of, if somebody is more experienced or not. The best player should play no matter what. So that's just my opinion. In the receiving game, Lynn Bowden had 7 catches for 70 yards. Despite having the most catches on the team, Lynn has just seemed off this year. I think a big part of it is, Benny Snell is no longer the focal point of our offense. So now Lynn Bowden is our biggest weapon. So now defenses are focusing more on Lynn Bowden. They're doubling him. They're playing tighter coverage on him. They're not, when Benny was our running back, they would run a lot of DB blitzes, and a lot of, the safeties would be stuffing up the middle, and the linebackers would not drop out into coverage because they needed somebody to stop Benny Snell. I think that could happen similarly if Cavassier was our starter. I feel like if Cavassier is our starter and he's getting the majority of the carries and he's doing what he does, I mean, the dude is averaging 5.1 yards per carry. Those went down a little bit after the Florida game. I think before the Florida game, he was averaging 7 yards per carry. Cavassier is just the obvious option, but I think if Cavassier is getting more carries, becoming more of a weapon, that opens up Lynn a little bit more, because then defenses are like, okay, we got to stop. We've got to stop, Cavassier's smoke. And then Cavassier could wear down the defense, and then he could throw AJ in, and AJ does what he does. I think AJ Rose is at his best when he is the backup and he is the secondary running back. When there's a guy who can wear the defense down, and then you throw fresh leg AJ in there and he just burns the defense, I think that's where AJ Rose is at his best. However, that just doesn't seem like that's what they want to utilize him for. But anyway, if they utilize Cavassier Smoke as a main back, I think Cavassier should be getting 20-plus carries per game. That's just my personal opinion. He had 16 against Florida, which is his career high, and it wasn't enough, in my opinion. I think Cavassier Smoke is a 100-yard per game back if you utilize him properly. A.J. Rose is a guy who can get you 60, 50 yards, which is good. I mean, if your backup running back can come in and get you 50 yards per game, that's fantastic. Ahmad Wagner is another wide receiver who, I mean, come on, let's be honest. Right now, Ahmad Wagner is our biggest weapon on offense, because I think a big part of that is Lynn Bowden being, covered so much. We have such great wide receivers. Josh Ali is a weapon. Keaton Upshaw and Justin Rigg, who, by the way, Justin Rigg had 5 catches and Keaton Upshaw had like 3, including a touchdown. So Sawyer Smith definitely utilizes the tight ends more than Terry did, and more than any quarterback we've had did. We've got some of the most elite tight ends in the entire country, and they don't get utilized properly, it seems like. But Sawyer was finding them, man. I love that about Sawyer. He found Justin Rigg 5 times, and he found Keaton Upshaw for that big touchdown. So, I think a big reason why Ahmad has succeeded so much is because, he was kind of an enigma coming in, not very many people knew about him because he wasn't utilized often. It's really hard to go from playing basketball for 3 years to being in the SEC against like top tier NFL caliber DBs. You know what I mean? But being 6'6", 6'7", whatever he is, and being just physically imposing with those big hands and that athleticism, these DBs don't have any choice but to, get pass interference calls. Because if they don't, he's going to get it, and he's going to get an even bigger gain than 15 yards. So it's almost like, just do what you can, try to stop him. Ahmad Wagner had 3 catches for 70 yards and a touchdown. 3 catches is unbelievable. It felt like he was utilized way more, but he wasn't. Especially in the fourth quarter, the fact that we're really trying to just ice this game and put it away, and you stop going to what works. That's been Stoops and Grand's biggest problem since they've been here, is they refuse to put their foot on the throat of the opponents. When you've got a weapon like Ahmad Wagner, every single time he's targeted, he either makes a big play, makes a big catch, or he gets a pass interference call. There is no in between. I think, I don't have the stat written down, but out of 16 targets, it's 15 targets, he has 7 catches and 7 pass interference calls. 14 of his 15 targets, something has happened. Okay, that is an efficiency rating that the world has never seen before. Come on. He is such a huge weapon, and when you stop utilizing your best weapons in an effort to just play conservative and run the clock, you can't do that. And when you're trying to run the clock out with A.J. Rose, who is not AJ is nowhere like, if you're trying to ice the game, put the ball in the hands of the most dynamic player who's going to chug forward and get those first downs if you want the clock to run out. I'll get into that a little bit more later, but the fact that Ahmad Wagner only had 3 catches is absurd to me. He had that one crazy catch. That was huge. It made SportsCenter top 10. It was big time. A lot of Florida fans on Twitter and everywhere else, coming out and saying, oh, it hit the ground, wasn't a catch, blah, blah, blah. It was a catch. His hand was under the ball. Let's be honest. But, so let's get into just the let's just get into the game itself and the details and the nitty gritty and why the game ended up being the way it was. I think the first big issue with why we lost, I don't want to place blame. It's a collective effort, but I think the biggest reason why we lost was the 2 targeting penalties that got called. I think those are both unacceptable calls that shouldn't have been made. The first one was Yusuf Corker in the first half. Let's just get it out of the way that we already have a very thin secondary, especially at that free safety position, with Devontae Robinson out for the season, and with, we lost Mike Edwards last year. We have Jordan Griffin and Tyrell Ajan are basically the only 2 returning players with in-game experience that are good enough to get some play time. We put true freshman Jalen Geiger in the game. He got injured, and we were just very thin at the safety position. But that Yusuf Corker call was so dumb. It was in the end zone. Threw the ball. I believe it was on 3rd down, so this was really pivotal. This is a whole nother situation, two targeting calls that put points on the board for Florida. But the ball was thrown in the direction of the receiver. Yusuf was already making his dive already making his tackle before the receiver lowered his head. He was obviously aiming for the ball. It's so blatant that he was going for the ball. It was just, there was obviously no malicious intent. There was obviously, he wasn't, I don't know. I thought it was a bad call. Maybe some people think it's a bad call or think it was a good call. I thought it was a bad call. So there you go. We already have a thin secondary, and you eject one of our most consistent players in the safety position. So he's gone. And actually, it was not Jalen Geiger who was put in, I don't think. It was actually Taj Dodson. That's my bad. It was not Jalen Geiger who got put in. It was Taj Dodson who got put in for Yusuf Corker. True freshman. He got carted off with a leg injury, got carted off the field. So there's another, not only is he a freshman having to fill that void, but now he's a freshman having to fill that void, and now he's gone as well. So I don't even know. I think our 2 safeties that were playing the rest of the game were Jordan Griffin, and then Tyrell Ajan had to switch over to that free safety position because he was just the best bet. Tyrell Ajan ended up having that interception. He played really well. Ajan was a former 4-star ESPN 300 recruit. I have full faith in Tyrell that he's going to do what we need him to do. Jordan Griffin is a senior. He's the only senior in that secondary. I have no doubt that he will do what we need him to do as well. But outside of that, true freshman Mo Douglas is probably going to get some reps soon. We should have Corker back. He shouldn't miss any more time because he got kicked out of the first half. So I think Corker will be back without a problem. So at least we'll have him back. Taj Dodson is likely out. I don't think they have announced what is actually wrong with him, but he's out for a while, most likely. Anytime you get carted off the field, you're probably going to be out for an extended period of time. I'm not a doctor, but that's just my opinion. So yeah, the secondary is very thin, but again, we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, then another targeting call was on a pivotal drive. We were up, I think it was 21-17, or no, 21-16. It was 21-16. We were up. They're driving down the field. It's 2nd down. We end up getting a sack. We end up sacking Kyle Trask. Boom, big time play. Yay, let's go. And then there's laundry on the field. There's a flag down. And TJ Carter gets called for targeting, and he gets ejected. And that's it. It was 2nd down. If that sack had stood, it would have been 3rd and about 20. And the odds of them converting on that were probably pretty low. We could have got the ball back and sealed out the game, but that's not how it happened. So it's not how it happened. TJ Carter gets called for targeting. It was a very questionable call. TJ Carter was going in for his tackle before Kyle Trask even was being brought down. Trask lowers his helmet at the last second. There's incidental helmet-to-helmet contact, and bang, 15-yard penalty, automatic first down, and we lose probably our most reliable defensive lineman in TJ Carter. So, I just want to talk about the targeting call a little bit right now. I think that it is way too strict. I get you're trying to protect the players. I get it. All right, but football, anyone who signs up to play football, anyone who decides to play football knows how brutal of a sport it can be. Now, that's not to say that there shouldn't be rules, to prevent head injuries. I feel like what we had going before this new targeting rule came out, I feel like that, where it's just forceful, defenseless, helmet to helmet, like hardcore, hit that obviously is. I mean, I feel like you should be able to dictate malicious intent on the field. And I also feel like you should be able to overturn the targeting call. I mean, they technically could overturn the targeting call, but I feel like if you go back, you watch the replay as a ref, and you see that there was obviously no malicious intent. It's incidental combat or contact. He's just going in for a normal tackle, and there happens to be helmet-to-helmet contact. Ejecting a player for that is unbelievably stupid. What are the coaches supposed to tell these players? How are you supposed to coach that? It's like, how are you supposed to even make a tackle without lowering your head? You have to lower your head to make a tackle. And it's like, if there happens to be some incidental helmet-to-helmet contact, that is not on the players. That's not on the defensive player. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're just trying to protect the player, then how come the offensive player lowering his helmet doesn't get him kicked out of the game? You know what I mean? Why is that on the defensive player? I hate that rule so much. That rule single-handedly decided the outcome of this game. There's obviously other things to blame, but on a pivotal drive where they ended up scoring on that drive, we pretty much had them stopped, and the refs are able to dictate the outcome of a game based off of a incidental contact, a good play by TJ Carter that was completely outside of his control. That is just such a gut-wrenching and such a dumb way to end a football game. I hate that so much. I hate it for TJ. I hate it for our entire team, and I hate it for the entirety of college football. Because, I mean, that when Chris Oates against Toledo got ejected, and we lost him for the first half of the Eastern Michigan game. That's something like, players should not be missing all this time for an accident. Like, it's so stupid. It's a terrible rule. No, that's not going to stop anyone from tackling people. It just harms college football in general. I hate it so much. I think it's a stupid rule. I think ejecting a player it's just such a dumb idea. But yeah, the losing Yusuf Corker really hurt our already weak secondary, and then losing, TJ Carter on a pivotal drive where they ended up scoring, and that score ended up winning them the game. It just sucks, man. It just sucks. But now we're going to get into some other reasons why we lost the game. That's not the only reason we lost the game. A big reason why we lost the game was the conservative play calling of both Coach Stoops and Eddie Grant. I don't know who's really to blame here, and I get what Stoops was doing. Okay, I get it. I get it to an extent, but I think what irks me more is not so much the conservative play calling at the end of the game. It's more the conservative play calling at the end of the first half. Conservative play calling at the end of the first half was ridiculous, honestly, to me, because we've got to start putting our foots on opponents' throats. It's 14-7 with a couple of minutes left in the first half. We're driving down the field. There's maybe about a minute left. You're past midfield. Why would you not start throwing to Ahmad Wagner, trying to go deep? The worst that can happen is it gets picked off all the way in our own red zone. The odds of them getting a pick six or scoring with under a minute left from 80 yards out is very unlikely. If you go into the half up 21-7, that's huge. Or if you only get a field goal, if you go into the half up 17-7, that is automatically a 2-possession game going into the second half. If we've got to stop playing scared. We will never be alphas. We will never be respected until we start giving people a reason to respect us. Okay, like it's not smart. It's never worked. I mean, maybe it has worked. We just refuse to talk about the times that it worked. We only want to talk about the times that it doesn't work. But you got it. We have talent. We have the best offensive line in the SEC outside of maybe Georgia. We've got some of the best skill position players: Ahmad Wagner, Lynn Bowden, Keaton Upshaw, Cavassier Smoke, AJ Rose, Josh Ali. there's no reason we shouldn't be attempting to go downfield. Every time we pass the ball, outside of the two bad throw interceptions, Sawyer struggled with decision making, obviously. But I don't think you can go wrong with lobbing the ball up to Ahmad Wagner, especially in single coverage. But if Ahmad's getting double coverage, you can throw it to Lynn Bowden. You can throw it to Josh Ali. You could throw it to anyone else. I mean, we've got weapons everywhere. If they feel the need that, okay, we need to double team, Ahmad Wagner, you can still throw the ball. Run the ball up the middle with AJ Rose. When we were running the clock out, quote unquote, we weren't even running with Cavassier. We were running with AJ Rose. He wasn't breaking free. AJ had a couple good runs. I'm not saying AJ's bad. I'm not saying AJ shouldn't play. I'm saying Cavassier Smoke is the best running back on our roster, and that the term freshman in his bio should not prevent him from getting carries. It's ridiculous. It's kind of similar to when we had Benny Snell his freshman year. Benny Snell, if we had utilized Benny Snell properly his freshman year and given him enough carries, I get that we had Boom Williams and I get that we had JoJo Kemp. But, Benny Snell was still obviously a huge weapon. You got to utilize your weapons, man. And we've got, like I said, we've got to start putting our foot on opponents' throats. Stoops and Gran just always go away from what's working and they play not to lose. And playing not to lose is how you lose. Playing not to lose is a huge reason we lost this game. We give them the ball back. And also, look, a big thing is it's like, okay, maybe we do get stopped. We've got probably the best punter in the entire country who can pin them. But with our weak secondary, we're not getting enough penetration on defense. You cannot rely on the defense to get a stop. We relied on the defense to get a stop, and they didn't, and Florida won. Our offense is our best part of our team right now. We've got to utilize these weapons. And I'm going to go back to we did not get Cavassier Smoke enough carries. Every time he touches the ball, something good happens. AJ Rose just hasn't gotten it done. And, we went into the season saying, okay, we've got a three-headed monster at running back. We've got AJ Rose, who's a dynamic veteran running back who knows the system and knows how to play. We've got Cavassier, who's the big talent, the guy who could break the long runs. And you've got Chris Rodriguez, who everyone is saying is going to be Benny 2.0. He runs with anger. He wants to just run everybody over. He doesn't have Benny's personality, but he's got Benny's running style, which is something that is really useful. Of the three running backs that we have, when it comes to third down and short or fourth down and short, here's the order in which who you should give the ball to. Cavassier Smoke is the number one option. If Cavassier is tired or injured, Chris Rodriguez should be getting the ball on third and short, fourth and short, or goal line situations where we have to stuff it. He's going to get 1 or 2 yards. He's very rarely going to get stuffed in the backfield. And I get that he had some fumble issues against Toledo. He fumbled twice against Toledo. I get it. We didn't even play him or give him a chance against Eastern Michigan, who we blew out, by the way. We could have given him some carries. It's one of those things where, look at this three-headed monster we have at running back. But now, because Chris struggled with ball security at first, we're just not going to play him at all. It's like AJ has had 2 fumbles this year as well. He didn't even get benched. You know who hasn't fumbled this year? Cavassier. You know who's averaging 7.1 yards per carry before this Florida game? Cavassier. You know who only had 11 carries until the fourth quarter when we're actually like, oh crap, we actually have to move the ball? Cavassier. And then they're like, oh shit, he's our best guy. He's our best option. We ran him and he starts doing stuff. You know what I mean? But it was too late at that point. A big issue was we didn't trust Sawyer enough. Outside of a couple bad, Sawyer was solid. You got to trust him, man. He's a smart guy. He's a veteran. He knows how to play. He proved he knew how to play. He proved he could throw deep balls. He proved that he could find the open receiver. There were so many times where he was in trouble, had to scramble out of the pocket, and would deliver a dot, to the middle of the field to a tight end on a curl route or to, Lee Allen Daly had a big catch. We also haven't really ran very many screens. Lynn Bowden, Josh Ali, those are guys who you can really, they're athletes who can make plays. We haven't really done it. I feel like we should utilize Lynn Bowden in some jet sweeps more often. I feel like Lynn Bowden should throw a few more passes. Running Lynn Bowden in the Wildcat is not a bad idea. I know everybody hates that. Everybody hates the Wildcat. Oh, it doesn't work. We don't have Benny, blah, blah, blah. Lynn Bowden is such a dynamic athlete. I do not mind him taking some Wildcat snaps. He can throw the ball. He can run the ball. Running Lynn Bowden up the middle is not a good idea. When we tried to get that 4th and 1, it was like a 4th and 1, or maybe it was a 3rd and 1. It was a short yardage situation where we threw Lynn in the Wildcat quarterback, and then he runs up the middle as if he's a running back. Lynn Bowden does best in open space, does best on the corners, left side, right side, bounce outside the tackles, juke a couple people out, get a few yards. If we're going to stuff up the middle, Kavosiey Smoke or Chris Rodriguez should get the ball. So even Sawyer Smith showed that he can run that QB sneak. He had a nice rushing touchdown off a QB sneak. So I think Kavosiey Smoke, I think Sawyer Smith is really solid with stuff like that as well. So I think situational running backs. Like, we need to run our running backs in situational instances. There's no reason in the world Kavosiey Smoke should not be the starting running back going into Mississippi State. If we go into Mississippi State with him not the starting running back, I'm going to be very surprised. Because at some point, I'm sure they're watching the film, and yeah, there were some missed blocks, whatever. But I'm sure they're watching the film like, okay, Kavosiey is going forward every play. We've got to put him in there. I love AJ. I think AJ deserves as much of a chance as anyone, but he should not be the number one guy. I'm sorry. He just shouldn't be. Yeah. I mean, I'm missing the opportunity to go into the half up by 2 scores, playing conservative, not capitalizing on, our guys. The talent we have, this isn't a few years ago, man. We've got more talent now than we have ever had. You've got to start utilizing that. Stoops is playing like it's 2014, and we've got Patrick Tolles, and then like Garrett Johnson is like our only playmaker. It's not then. This is not now. We've got multiple 4 and 5 stars on our offensive line. We've got Lynn Bowden, who should be at Ohio State right now. You've got Kavosiey Smoke, who should be at Auburn right now. You've got, Josh Ali, who should be at Florida right now. You've got so many weapons at your disposal. You've got a 6'6", 6'7" wide receiver who every time you throw him the ball, something good happens. You've got a 6'6" tight end in Keaton Upshaw who every time you throw him the ball, something good happens. Sawyer had a few overthrows. He missed Lynn on a couple deep plays. I do think that has to do with Sawyer's wrist injury a little bit. He when he threw an interception, he chased down the DB and made the big tackle, but he hurt his hand on the process. And after that, he started having some big overthrows and things of that nature. So I think that he deserves a lot of credit for how he played. I'm not mad at Sawyer at all. For a guy to just be thrust into a situation like that, I think he played well. I think he's going to go into Mississippi State, not make the same. I'm very excited to see what he can do. Our defense did a phenomenal job of stopping the run. All right, LaMichael Pirine for Florida is like a top tier SEC running back. Like he'd probably in the top 4, top 5 running backs in the SEC. And the SEC is always known for its really good running backs. LaMichael Pirine is a fantastic back, and we held him to 1.9 yard per carry. He had 14 carries for 27 yards, 1.9 yards per carry. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. We held them to 62 yards rushing before that 76-yard touchdown on the final play or the final drive. 62 yards rushing. And that also includes a couple of Felipe's frank scrambles where there was just a wide open range. You take those away, they didn't do anything. And these are 4 and 5 star running backs that we're stopping. You know what I mean? I'm way more excited for our defense now than I was at the beginning of the year because we've had players step up. Josh Pascal's playing awesome. Obviously, Cash Daniel is Cash Daniel. He did miss that interception that could have sealed the game, After he missed that interception, that was the same drive where the targeting penalty happened. That's the same drive where they took the lead and ended up winning the game. If Cash had timed that jump properly, he'd have picked that off, and we probably would have won the game. Cash is like the last person I'm blaming for this. Don't even get me started on Chance Poor missing a 35-yard routine chip shot. The high school I went to, we had a guy who ended up going to Mars Hill Community College, or like Mars Hill, I don't know if it's community college, but Mars Hill College, which is like not even D2, it's like NAIA, like D3, was nailing 45 and 50 yarders in games. And like, I get it, the pressure's on. There's a very big difference between high school games and playing in front of however many thousands of eager fans when the game's on the line against a top 10 school. I get that. I couldn't do that. I'm not saying I could do that, but I think it's moments like this that make me really miss Austin McGinnis. And guys like that in the past who have just been so reliable. Last year we had I'm sorry, but we had a really bad kicker last year, Miles Butler, who couldn't even hit 30 yarders, but he was a walk-on. Chance Poor is a guy who they were out here saying is bombing 60 yarders in practice, and he comes in and misses a 35-yard chip shot. Again, Chance Poor, despite the fact that if that had gone in, there's probably like an 80% chance we win the game. Chance Poor does not get all the blame and doesn't even get most of the blame. Most of the blame goes to, I think if I had to attribute this loss to two things, the number one thing would be BS targeting calls, the two BS targeting calls, and conservative play calling, not putting our foot. I mean, we're up 21-10 in the third quarter and still somehow end up losing the game and not scoring another. Like, that's very indicative of what happened. It's the third quarter. We're up 21-10. They score 19 unanswered points. We don't even score, and we don't score again. After the third quarter, we didn't score again. We were held scoreless in the fourth quarter because we're trying to, we're just going to seal this game out by running it up the middle 6 times in a row. And it's like, now they know what we're doing. Benny Snell is not in that backfield anymore. That is not how we play anymore. Eddie Gran is a guy who I have a real love-hate relationship with, because when it works, it works, and when it doesn't, it really doesn't. My personal opinion is that we need a young offensive coordinator. We need a young offensive coordinator. Eddie Gran is a very old school guy. This is an old school staff. This is a nickel and dime, roughneck, blue-collar coaching staff. And Eddie Gran is a blue-collar play caller. He's like, what, we're just going to wear them out. But with the skill positions we have now, I want to run an offense similar to like Oklahoma, or similar to, a team of that nature that loves to score the ball. It doesn't seem like Eddie Gran likes to score the ball. It seems like Eddie Gran wants to put the ball in the end zone when necessary, and then, okay, we're up by a lot, so let's just try really hard to just run up the middle every play. Let's not trust our quarterback to make a throw. Dude, if I had Ahmad Wagner, who's 6'7", and Lynn Bowden to throw the ball to, I could probably make a few of those passes. I could throw a pretty tight spiral. I'm a solid quarterback. Probably could do that. Okay. Sawyer Smith is a Division I athlete who has in-game experience. He can throw that football. Okay. And he proved he could throw that football. We got to trust him. You got to trust him. Another reason, and this is the final reason we lost this game. Okay. We lost this game because Felipe Franks got injured. If Felipe Franks played the whole game, we would have won. I am almost 100% certain of that. Felipe Franks was – Trask came in. He was making throws. It seemed like, everybody's open. You know what I mean? I think that had been going on all game. I think we were playing lax defense all game. I think our secondary was playing off. We were playing a very soft zone with the secondary. And I think Felipe Franks was just throwing the ball to his first read. Never do you really see Felipe Franks scan the entirety of the field. I'm guaranteeing that there's multiple instances where there was probably a guy open and Franks forced a bad ball or threw the ball away or took a sack. Once Kyle Trask came in the game, he had better on-the-field vision. He was finding players. He was finding people that were open. I'm sure he's sitting there on that sideline all game like, good Lord, this man Felipe is missing So many open targets. Felipe goes down. Kyle Trask comes in. Kyle Trask, I guarantee, is not a better quarterback than Felipe Franks when it comes to talent. But he's a 6'5" pocket passer who seemingly had better on the field vision. He found his players better. That's all. Like, I mean, they really tore us up. And I truly believe that if Felipe Franks stayed in the game for the whole game, we would have won. I truly believe that. I think Kyle Trask came in, had something to prove. We weren't ready for it, and he tore us up. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say about this game. I mean, we really should have won. We outplayed them in every facet. The AP poll came out, for the rankings today or yesterday, and we didn't receive any votes for the top 25. Now, if we weren't in the top 25 before and then we lost, I understand it on paper. But for anyone who watched that Kentucky versus Florida game, anyone who watched that game knows for a fact that Kentucky was the better team and that Kentucky should have won the game, and that stuff that was out of their control lost them the game. Chance Poore missing that kick should not have happened. Those 2 targeting calls should not have happened. Conservative play calling should not have happened. And at this point in Stoops' tenure, he's been here how long now? Is this like his 7th year, his 8th year, 6th or 7th, something like that? He should know by now that playing not to lose gets you beat. He should know that by now. Again, I don't get paid the big bucks. He knows better than me. I'm not sitting here saying I know better than Mark Stoops. I'm saying, there was a lot that we could have done better in terms of play calling, and they know that, and we'll get better. I'm looking forward to the Mississippi State game. I think we can easily handle Mississippi State. Mississippi State received some votes for the top 25 despite losing. As far as I know, Mississippi State lost their game on Saturday. I don't even know who they played. Let's ask Siri. What was the score of the Mississippi State football game? Mississippi State barely lost to Kansas State. Yeah. So Mississippi State lost to Kansas State and still is getting votes for the top 25. We almost beat a top 10 team, and then they stopped giving us votes. That's kind of dumb in my opinion. I'm just saying. But yeah, if we get some things cleaned up, some really simple things. Give Cavassier the ball more. Trust Sawyer Smith more. Get Sawyer's decision-making cleaned up a little bit. And just we need to get a little bit more pressure on the quarterback. We can very easily take out Mississippi State. Very easily. I think we can handle that team. I really do. Kylan Hill's a great running back. But with the way we've been defending the run, I don't know if he's going to have much success. They're having a kind of a quarterback controversy. I think they've got 3 quarterbacks who are interchangeable. The only one I know by name is Tommy Stevens, who's the Penn State transfer. He played really well in the beginning of the year. But I guess, I don't know. I haven't been paying too much attention to Mississippi State. I'm going to scout out Mississippi State. And before the game on Saturday, I'm going to do another one of these podcast episodes where I discuss I talk about, the upcoming Mississippi State game. I'm probably going to do 2 podcasts per week, 2 podcast episodes per week. I'm going to stick with, I'm going to do like reactions to a game after it, and then I'm going to do, leading up to a game. So I'll do that during basketball season too. And in those episodes, we'll cover any news that came out. So I'll probably do a podcast on Saturday night after a game. So whenever we finish a game, I'll come on and talk about it. And then I'll probably do another one on like Wednesday or Thursday, where I talk about what's leading up to the new game, what there is to look forward to, matchups, that sort of thing, and any other Kentucky news. Again, I have a website as well where I would be blog posting, very similar to KSR, other Kentucky news outlets like Sea of Blue, that sort of thing. I'll be posting my own articles. Maybe one of these days I will be able to get, some other writers on the account. But for the most part, I'm excited to start this. Again, we're sitting small right now at 14 subscribers, and we don't have We don't have too much going on just yet. This is our very first upload. I'm going to be uploading on this channel a lot as well, like maybe some game highlights, maybe some quick reactions that, to small things, and things of that nature. I also have a gaming channel that I, play video games on and live stream and stuff. I probably won't even plug that anywhere, at least not for now. But yeah, I'm excited for this YouTube channel. I'm excited to see what I could do with my website. I'm very passionate about Kentucky sports. So if you guys made it all this far, I would really appreciate a subscription, and maybe check out the website, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if, we've got a passion for UK over here, man. So, yeah. Thank you for anyone who watched this podcast, listened to this podcast, and I will see y'all in the next one. Peace. And go Big Blue.